Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope everyone is having a good day. Inshallah, we are going to continue from the 25th word that we've been studying on the miraculousness of the Quran. And we've been studying this for over a year, I realized when I was looking at some notes I found in October of 2020. And even then, we were pretty well into the text. MashaAllah. So let's begin. I know that I haven't been able to join the last few weeks, but I guess as a group, collectively, we had finished the first light, and now we are on the second light, the second beam of the second light. And in the first beam, part of what it had been talking about, you guys probably went into greater detail, was a continuation of the Quran's focus on the Quran's eloquence, but also how, despite being revealed over 20 years or so, it has the order, the structure, the eloquence of a speech that was compiled together in one go, if you will, amongst other things. So inshallah, let's begin. I'll read a little bit. I think I'll read probably the entirety of the first point of eloquence, as well as the reminder aspect of the second beam. So Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Second beam. This concerns the miraculous qualities in the Quran's unique style, in the summaries and most beautiful divine names, which it shows at the ends of its verses. Reminder, there are many verses in the second beam. These are not only examples for the second beam, but for all the preceding examples and rays. It would be extremely lengthy to explain them all, giving them their due, so for now I am compelled to be brief and succinct. I have therefore indicated very concisely all the verses which form examples of this mighty mystery of miraculousness, and have postponed detailed explanation of them to another time. Thus, the Quran, a miraculous exposition, mostly mentions summaries at the conclusion of its verses, which either contain the divine names or their meanings, or refer the verse to the reason in order to urge it to ponder over it. Or they comprise a universal rule from among the aims of the Quran in order to corroborate and strengthen the verse. Thus, in the summaries are certain indications from the Quran's exalted wisdom and certain droplets from the water of life of divine guidance, and certain sparks from the lightning of the Quran's miraculousness. Now I shall mention briefly only 10 of those numerous indications and point out a concise meaning of only one of numerous truths, which are all one example out of many. Most of these 10 indications are found together in compact form in most verses and form a true embroidery of miraculousness. Furthermore, most of the verses we give as examples are examples of most of the indications. We shall point out only one indication for each verse, and shall just point lightly to the meanings of those verses given as examples in the preceding words. Okay, so that's a lengthy reminder, but I think there's some very crucial and important statements here that the author is sharing with us that we should try to keep in mind as we continue and study and look at the verses that are to come, some of which I'll just highlight. First and foremost, I think the very first sentence tells us that we should try to realize when looking at Quranic verses how the verses themselves provide summaries or a sort of reference point of which divine qualities or divine names are to be sought in the verses. So over here, for example, and again, the reminder, it says that these summaries at the conclusion of its verses either contain the divine names or their meanings, or refer the verse to the reason or the intellect in order to urge it to think, reflect, or comprise a universal rule from among the aims of the Quran in order to corroborate and strengthen the verse. So clearly there's a sort of order, there's a sort of structure that is going on in verses, in Quranic verses. And this structure, I think, or pattern, if you will, can help us not only just, recognize the eloquence in the Quran's exposition, but also but also can aid us in further trying to understand what that verse is here to tell me, what that verse can offer me right now. It can strengthen our understanding, and it can strengthen, hopefully, what we take from it, and offer us a more fuller comprehension, fuller experience of what the verse is speaking about, the guidance that it's offering to me, and all my humanness at the moment. So with that, I think if you guys have anything to say about the reminder, please speak up. You'll have a chance later on as well, of course. But we can also just dive into the first quality of eloquence that Nursi wants to highlight, and see where it takes us from there. But I'll pause for a moment. Okay. All right. So again, you can always reference back if you feel the need to later. So let's go into the first quality. First quality of eloquence. With its miraculous exposition, the all-wise Quran lays out, spreads out before the eyes, the acts and works of the all-glorious Maker. With its miraculous exposition, the all-wise Quran lays out, spreads out before the eyes, the acts and works of the all-glorious Maker. Then it extracts the divine names from those works and acts, or provides the basic aims of the Quran, like the resurrection of the dead and divine unity. I'll just interject right here for a moment to say that sounds like the Quran itself does the heavy lifting for us, really, in bringing to attention the divine names, qualities that we should be understanding, that we should be looking out for, experiencing when looking at a certain set of verses. When you're reading a book, and you need to go through it pretty quickly, the final last paragraphs of the chapter will usually offer a good summary of what the whole entire chapter is about, kind of like a little cheat code. And obviously that's not the exact same, it's just an analogy, it's not the same exact situation here, but it's also, I guess, to me, showing a sense of self-awareness. The text is showing a sense of or the exposition is showing a sense of self-awareness, and also it's not just I would think unnecessary conclusive remarks that repeat what has already been said, but an emphasis, a call to attention, a model of the line of thought or thought process that I myself should be going through, not just when I engage with those verses, but also when I engage with the verses of creation. How to extract the divine names, how to extract the divine qualities that I experience when I hopefully try to read the experiences, the interactions, situations that I'm in always. So let me just continue. That was just a little side note from me. So an example of the first meaning is this. The first meaning being how the Quran lays out the acts and works of the all-glorious Maker, and then puts forth, extracts the divine names from those works and acts. An example of this is, and this is from Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 29. He it is who has created for you all things that are on the earth. Then he turned his will to the heavens and ordered them as the 7 heavens, for he has knowledge of all things. An example of the second part: have we not made the earth as a resting place, and the mountains as pegs? And have we not created you in pairs, until verily the day of sorting out is a thing appointed? And this is from chapter 78, verses, just it's a couple of verses actually, 6 to 17. In the first verse, it describes the divine works and sets out the mightiest of them, which testify through their order and aims to knowledge and power, like the premises of a conclusion or a momentous aim. Then it extracts the name of all-knowing. In the second verse, as is explained briefly in the third point of the first ray in the first light, it mentions Almighty God's mighty acts and works, then concludes the resurrection of the dead, which is the day of sorting out. So very briefly, Nursi is presenting us with 2 set of different verses, or verses that are close to each other, as in the second example, and also giving us a very brief idea of how this order, miraculous quality, unique style, the Quran exemplifies and holds and displays, is manifested in these verses. So let me pause there to see if you guys have any thoughts. Perhaps, some of you might have realized this when engaging with verses, this sort of order. And if not, I guess what aspect of it strikes you? What does this offer to me in understanding the miraculousness of the Quran? Or is it to offer me something beyond just the miraculousness aspect, but something about how I should interact with the Quran, my practice of interacting with the Quran, what I should be looking out for? I don't know, just any general thoughts that you might want to share from the second beam that we've read so far would be helpful for me as well. Thank you. Brother Yusuf, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So before going to the miraculousness aspect, so I think I will just reiterate what I understand. It might be a repetition of what you just said. So the way Quran is reading the universe, as the author was initially saying, so I'm expecting the Quran to read the universe to me, to explain the universe to me. So in this regard, the way it does it is it looks at the creation, or as the author says in here, acts and works of the all-glorious maker. So looking at the actions and the doings that are happening in the existence. And then from this, as if like out of a tree, you see that there's a seed at the center of it, saying that the whole tree, this was made for that seed, where everything in that tree is summarized in that seed. So likewise, Quran is reading the universe, reading an act and work of the Creator, and then summarizing it in a seed, like those divine names, which are placed at the end of each verse. So thinking about it, this is it's making it more easier for me to interact with those meanings, because let's say you study those discussions for hours, years, whatever, but at the end of it, a few words are summarizing the whole discussion for you. And this is what is actually called dhikr. Like you say subhanallah in your prayer, but maybe subhanallah means what it means for you is let's say 100 discussions and let's say 5, 10 very important life events for you. But for you, it is summarized in a single word, which is Subhanallah. Likewise, what Quran does in here is it is reading the universe and summarizing them to me in a few words, which are the divine names, and saying that you see what all these events, you thought that they were actions which have value in and of themselves. Actually, they are simply manifestation of the creator. So it is actually the whole thing, what it shows is the creator has the knowledge of all things. This was the main point of the whole events or the things that have been happening. So in this regard, now bringing it back to miraculousness aspect. So miraculous would mean it is unlike anything else. So unlike any human would do or anything in the existence would do. So now I look at the humans or the books of the humans, or even how we, I mean, not only books, but think about the movies or plays, theaters, poems. So how do we interpret the existence? And are we really seeing it from that lens, so much so that we are going to summarize it in a single word, but that single word is going to be connected to the divine? I think in this regard, Quran is unique in summarizing it, looking at it from that lens, and then summarizing it with the divine names, saying that this is the truth of everything. What you see in here is nothing but manifestation of rahmah, nothing but manifestation of ilm of the creator, so on and so forth.
Thank you, Brother Yusuf. That was very helpful. And not just a repetition of what I had said, but even if it was, we welcome repetitions. Sometimes we have to drive them into our heads a bit more. But yeah, I think it's very interesting that again, the Quran can, the Quran can act as a sort of blueprint on how I too should be approaching what I go through, what I live through. In that, it's not just that I live through things or I go through things and then I come to the Quran for guidance and, look at a few verses and maybe feel better, but also that the Quran, the spirit of the Quran, if you will, the method of the Quran sort of permeates through how I interpret events as I go through them. It permeates through the consciousness with which I approach all situations, hopefully. And I think that's really that's really awe-striking in a certain regard for me. Brother Birkan, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Just very briefly, when I read this text, it reminded me the main aim of Quran, which is reminding us that there's a creator beyond everything, and you need to be taught about this creator, and this is my goal. That the Quran is telling us that what I am good for is that I will look at the same creation that you are looking at, but I will look at it from the lenses of knowing your creator, and I will teach you how to conclude with these divine names of your creator, how to know your creator. So this is the aim of the Quran, as if with the example verses author shares, we see that what Quran does, just summarizing first, our experiences in universe, what we see out there or in us, and then say that, oh yeah, all this means that he has the knowledge of all things, with the first example. So it is as if, again, telling us that this is the purpose, main purpose of Quran, teaching you how to make connections between what we experience and your Lord. And also studying such a topic within the text, which is about the miraculousness of Quran. When I ask, what is miraculous about that? So of course we can discuss which is, mainly what is meant probably in this text that we are reading, is that this style of exposition is miraculous. There's a great style of, explaining things. But also, I guess I would say this is miraculous from the point of view that without Quran, we won't be able to do these derivations. We won't be just looking at the creation and say that, oh, do you know what? My Lord is the one who have the all knowledge, who has the all knowledge. We wouldn't able to do that. Only by Quran, the gates of the realm in which we know our Creator. Only by Quran, the windows to the names of our Creator opens. Without it, it won't be possible. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Brother Rikan. Brother Yusuf, you can hop right on.
And also looking at the verse, because he is giving that verse as an example. He it is who has created for you all things that are on the earth. Then he turned his wheel to the heavens and ordered them as the seven heavens, for he has knowledge of all things. So I was trying to see what the verse is saying also. I mean, okay, it's an example for what verse says in here, but in the verse, as if there is an ordering. So as if he first created this and then he created death. The second one, like he first created everything in the earth, and then he created the seven heavens and ordered them. And this is an indication or a proof that he is knowing of all things. So, of course, if I take it on the face value, it sounds a bit weird, because what does it mean for God to create something first and then something next? Like we are talking about time if we talk about first and next, which is becoming awkward. So it looks like, again, this verse is speaking to me the way I look at the universe. And as if it is saying that, and I'm going to interpret the heavens in here as the meanings and the purposes of the existence. So as if it is saying that when you look at the universe, what you first see is the earth. Earth meaning beings, like you see the trees, you see your mother, your daughter, you see the tomatoes, you see the sun and the moon. These are the things that you first see. And you will see that they are everything like together, they are created. Their creator must be one and only, because they are created in such a harmony. So their creator is one. Everything in that creation is created by the one. Then you will raise your head to, so then what does that mean? So it is pretty much like, as we keep giving this example, in a book, what you first see is ink and paper. That's the first thing that attracts your attention. Then once you realize that it is within an order, it's not like random dirt spread over that paper, then you start saying, what message is being conveyed to me here? Might there be a message? Then the heavens are, you realize that the heavens are ordered to seven, meaning you first understand something, then you see that, oh, there's a second layer of meaning, a third layer of meaning, and it looks like there are meaning on top of meaning put, and as if this earth, the existence, was the ink of his pen. And through this ink, I realized that a new world opens to me, which are the heavens. Then I realize all of them. And what does all these show me? All these show me that he is knowing of all things, because the whole universe was a book. But as I keep reading it, I realize how deep of a book it is. And then I realize that, oh, the author of this book is all knowing. He knows everything. وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. This part I conclude, and it very beautifully now shows me how the universe was a book, and I was first introduced to its ink and then its layers of meanings. And the summary of all this huge picture is, وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. It is showing that the author is aware of what he has been writing. And every single dot, even the lack of a dot on this page, let's say some punctuation was not put in there, was purposeful, showing that he is knowing of all things.
Thank you, Brother Yusuf. Yeah, I think, that awareness aspect of it is very interesting to me. Because it's one thing perhaps for me to intellectualize and conclude that he must know all things, right? But then to also have a reaffirmation of that, reassurance of that through the awareness of the speech itself really doubles down on it, and gives it this deeper, stronger layer of he is knowing of all things. And that can be very soothing, very nurturing for when I experience things in my life that seem like, wait, there should be punctuation here. Why is the punctuation missing? Or why is this word here in terms of, words and punctuations being events? And so, again, I can conclude that, well, this is all being created purposefully, but then to also have this source that I conclude and see as guidance, reassuring me that it is indeed purposeful because he is knowing of all things, that, he put or didn't put that punctuation on purpose, in a meaningful way, in a meaningful fashion. I think that emphasis on it, that confirmation of that truth, sits differently. So let me return to the text here. But I also, one aspect that I enjoy here is that, again, Nursi is offering us also a means of a sort of little toolkit, if you will, on how to approach other verses in the Quran as well. Not just these verses, but other verses that we can find similar themes, similar patterns in, and that in turn look to how we interpret and engage with events in our lives. So I find that very, I'll be honest, sometimes over the last year there have been weeks where I've thought, oh man, we're still continuing the 25th word, like we just have not been able to finish it. But today I was thinking that the topic of this 25th word, perhaps, it can become wearisome week after week, but it's so significant, it's so crucial to every aspect of my life. I mean, this is the speech that I look to when I seek guidance. This is the speech that I look to when I'm trying to find meaning in my existence. When I'm trying to find consolation, when I'm trying to find understanding, when I'm trying to find a blueprint on how to approach things, right? And so to be able to engage with the miraculousness of that speech, the qualities of that speech that really hopefully strengthen the way I engage with it, the way I read it and recite it. I think that's a very, I think in that respect, I'm very grateful for the author of this text and in offering us this other text of as a manual or as a vehicle of understanding the Quran's eloquence. Brother Muhammad Said, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. The thoughts that I have probably will be a repetition of what has been said already, but I would like to share them anyways, inshallah. What got my attention in this text that you have read, one point at least, is that the author mentions or repeats a sentence 2 times in the part that starts with first quality of eloquence. In there, it mentions the Quran, the way the Quran communicates with the addressee. That first, it mentions, as the verses also put here as an example of it, the verses of the Quran mentions about things in the universe as created beings. Then, as the author said, then it attracts the divine names from those works and acts. This then part is mentioned 2 times. That's what I was trying to say in the continuation of this part. Again, he mentions the same concept, if you like, as a concept. If I received it as kind of a concept of these verses, maybe as the author says in the reminder part, in the most of the verses of the Quran, this concept is there, as far as my understanding goes. What is the important part for me? What I am understanding from here is that, as it was said actually in the comments, that for me to come to this conclusion that there is a divine being, or as in the verse it says, the things created for you, or it is who has created for you. Like it kind of tells me that, do you see them? Do I see things for me? Like, yes, I see things for me. I see things serving to me. And my eyes, my ears, the air, or everything, the earth, serving to me. For in that sense, they are for me. So in this, I think in this at this point, I am kind of offered this question that are they serving to you, or they are they are being made for you? I think this is kind of at the point that the reader or me can come to the conclusion that the things are really being made for me. So I am known. So my needs are known. The things cannot know, and the things cannot serve. Therefore, I am known. And then, as the author says, puts this concept, beautiful concept, then I am known. So then since everything is known, so therefore this maker is an all-knowing one. I think these are the steps or kind of the meanings that I am offered through this verse or through the understanding of Nursi of these verses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Mohammed Said. And again, not a repetition at all, even though if all anyone has to say is a repetition, please do so anyway. The more the merrier, inshallah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that really important reflection. Do we have any other thoughts about this first quality of eloquence that the author here has outlined for us? Perhaps thoughts about the second set of verses here. They're not in exact order, but here for the second part, it says, it proves the basic aims of the Quran, like the resurrection of the dead and divine unity. And it said again here, it mentions God, Almighty God's mighty acts and works, then concludes the resurrection of the dead, which is the day of sorting out. And I see that, like even in these verses, they continue on, they begin with, what are they asking one another about the momentous news, one which they disagree, they will come to know. And eventually it goes to say in the mountains, did I pull the right verses? I'm not sure. But anyways, the mountains as pegs, and have we not created you in pairs, until verily the day of sorting out is a thing appointed. And so it's not necessarily offering me the conclusion of resurrection here, right from the get-go, right? But taking me through this journey of thought, journey of reasoning, which I can also implement in my own life, right? I observe something, I reflect about it, and then I come to a conclusion about it. But that process of thought is very much so necessary, just as necessary as the conclusion itself that it points to. And we see the Quran exemplify this model of thought, exemplify this process of thinking, and in doing so, encourage us to do the same, encourage us to not just approach the verses here as such, but also our life as such. Any other thoughts on these before I continue? Brother Yusuf, please go ahead.
Very briefly. So sometimes I see that, of course, it's easier to see outside. Some people are living lives, like some event happens, and we come up with a conclusion saying that, let's say, somebody misbehaves somebody else, and then 10 minutes later, he gets mistreated by somebody else. And we say, see, you didn't, and this is what you faced. But what was the point? So as if we are living life in the sense of a fight taking place. I did something and then something bad happened to me. But okay, what lesson shall I get out of that? I shall not misbehave anybody else. Okay, but for what? What is the point? I'm going to die. That other person is going to die. Does it matter if that 60 years of life passed without any back and forth hitting each other? Or it constantly kept hitting each other, and then at the end of 6 years, we are dead anyways. So eventually, if this is the end, then they are exactly the same actually, because they are exactly zero. Both of them are zero at the end if it becomes zero. So getting true messages or relevant messages, eternal messages out of such life events are so crucial. This is why I guess overall, the part that we are now studying matters a lot, because it is saying that Quran, the way Quran is extracting those messages or reading the universe and summarizing those messages are quite different. So when I read these, I guess I should ask myself, is this how I am reading the universe? Or the way I read universe was totally different? And to what extent can I adapt this way of reading to the universe? In another example that comes to my mind is, am I, for example, approaching the universe in a way that I am being educated, trained, or I might be living the universe as if I am being tortured. I might be living the universe as if I am watching a fight and or a soccer match, and I'm a spectator. Spectator in the sense that I am here just to enjoy. I might even be taking it as creator is one of the players, like there are bad guys and the creator is beating them, and I just sit at the spectator seat and just cheer and enjoy, rather than trying to say, what does that mean for me? In what sense does it provide me or save me from my eternal problems, which is, I don't want to die. I want an eternal happiness. The scene that right now I am watching, how does it solve those problems? How does it remedy my diseases? Do I ask such questions? This is why I guess, especially at this chapter, the second light, if I'm not wrong, all those quality of eloquences that we are going to read, is really teaching me how to read the universe, how Quran is teaching me to read the universe. So inshallah, I'm intending to keep asking to myself, do I read the universe as such, as the Quran is instructing me to do?
Thank you, Brother Yusuf. Yeah, usually, when you're younger, it happens when you don't listen to your mom, and what they would call the slap of mercy some would come, in which, you hurt yourself or you tripped, and that was directly linked to not listening to your mom. But yeah, going back to what you said, I think inshallah, let's make that intention to see how this can give us a framework, give us a path on how to read existence, on how to approach the events of my life, on how to deal with the many feelings, circumstances, experiences that are continuously being created for me. And that in itself, I think, is part of the guidance that the Quran offers. Okay. So if there's no other comments on this portion so far, I'm going to continue from the second point of eloquence, and we'll take it from there. Let's just see. All right, I'll read a few paragraphs and then just pause. Second point of eloquence. The Quran unrolls the woven fabrics of divine art and displays them to the human gaze. The Quran unrolls the woven fabrics of divine art and displays them to the human gaze. Then in the summaries, it passes over the weaving within the divine names, or else refers them to the reason. So this is somewhat related to what it was saying in the first point of eloquence. The first example of these, and this is from chapter 10, verses 31 to 32. Say, who is it that sustains you from the sky and from the earth? Or who is it that has power over hearing and sight? And who is it that brings out the living from the dead and the dead from the living? And who is it that rules and regulates all affairs? They will say, God. Say, will you not then show piety to him? This is God, your sustainer, the truth. Let me just read that one more time. Say, who is it that sustains you from the sky and from the earth? Or who is it that has power over hearing and sight? And who is it that brings out the living from the dead and the dead from the living? And who is it that rules and regulates all affairs? They will say, God. Say, will you not then show piety to him? This is God, your sustainer, the truth. And now Nursi explains it for us. Thus, at the start, it asks, who is it that readies the skies and the earth as though they were two storehouses for your sustenance, and causes one to produce rain and the other seeds? Is there anyone other than God who could make them two subservient storekeepers? In which case, thanks should be offered to him alone. In the second phrase, it asks, who is the owner of your eyes and ears, the most precious of your members? From which workbench or shop did you obtain them? It is only your sustainer that could give you them. It is he who creates and raises you and gave you them. In which case, there is no sustainer but he, and the only one fit to be worshipped is he. In the third phrase, it says, who is it that resurrects the dead earth and raises to life hundreds of thousands of sorts of dead beings? Who could bring this about apart from the true God and creator of all the universe? It is surely he who brings it about. He raises them to life. Since he is the truth, he will not violate rights. He will send you to a supreme tribunal. He will raise you to life just as he raises to life the earth. In the fourth phrase, it asks, who other than God can administer and regulate this vast universe with perfect order as though it were a palace or a city? Since it can be none other than God, the power which administers with extreme ease the vast universe and all its heavenly bodies, is so faultless and infinite, it can have no need of partner or associate, assistance or help. The one who directs the vast universe will not leave small creatures to other hands. That means you will be obliged to say God. Thus, the first and fourth phrases say God, the second sustainer, and the third truth. So understand how miraculously apt are the words, this is God, your sustainer, the truth. It mentions Almighty God's vast disposals, the meaningful weavings of his power. Then through mentioning the names of God, sustainer, and truth, it shows the source of those vast disposals of divine power. And I'm going to pause there before it gets into a different set of verses. So again, we have here an example of verses in which, as Nursi said, the Quran unrolls the woven fabrics of divine art and displays them to the human gaze. Then in the summaries, it passes over the weaving within the divine names, or else refers them to the reason. So I really like, and I really enjoy how Nursi is, even though briefly perhaps, is laying out this verse for us and then going through the four phrases of it and how we can see the order, the sort of symmetry, the sort of eloquence that is present here. I want to think about it a little bit more, but what do you all think about this? I think it's really lovely the way that, this is very much so summarizing everything else that has gone on. This is God, your sustainer, the truth. And I guess someone in the comments had mentioned earlier that, the dhikrs that we might say sometimes after prayer or perhaps at other times in the day, they are very much so summarizations of the conclusions that we reach, maybe after a long time, maybe after intense studying. But similarly, I guess, being able to say, this is God, my sustainer, the truth, it can be a summary, it can be a wrap up of many events, many years that all kind of lead up to it, look to it, carry it. And there's also the rhetorical fashion of these verses, right? Who is it that sustains you from the sky, from the earth? Who is it that has the power over hearing and sight? Who is it that brings out the living from the dead and dead from the living? Who is it that rules and regulates all affairs? Like, I'm meant to ask these questions. When a tornado, when a hurricane comes and floods the entire earth, I'm meant to ask, who is the one that's creating this for me? Who is the one that is creating all of this water, all of this power, all of this extreme display of just glory, in a sense. And then I will be led to say, God. And I will be asked then by my own consciousness, by my own sort of self-honesty, to remain conscious of it, to remain aware of the source who is creating all of this for me. So we have a hand up. Abdurrahman, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to just briefly, I guess, give my reaction to this verse. Some of these verses can sometimes be hard to understand what Nursi is pointing out in them, or the comprehensiveness and the eloquence that Nursi is saying are hidden or are shown in the verses. But I think when it comes to this verse, it's just very clearly speaks out so beautifully to me, is my first reaction to it. And it's a verse like this which truly shows like how profound the Quran can be, and how profound hearing my creator speak to me can be. Because when I read this verse, it is saying like it is comforting for me, or it is soothing, in the sense that we have worries or doubts, or we have people telling us otherwise, or we have our own, let's say, desires pointing us towards, not God sometimes, but pointing us towards like, living for the thing itself, or living for pleasure, or different things. So we have a lot of things that might be pulling us away from the true meaning of things, or the true purpose of things. But then when I read this verse, it is kind of like a soothing reminder, a soothing like come back to reality for me, because it's saying like, who is it that sustains you from the sky and from the earth? And it reminds me of these like vast things. It starts with a very vast creation, which I very much enjoy. Like, I love the sky, I love the earth, especially if you zoom out and look at it in a very vast shape. Like, who doesn't love how beautiful the earth is in terms of like a landscape? Or if you even like, if you look from space, or if you look at space, how beautiful space is. I mean, looking from space to earth, like this blue marble, it looks amazing. It's astounding, really. And you're just like, it fills you with awe. And then hearing and sight, these things I value and I enjoy. And then it talks about brings out the living from the dead and the dead from the living. And this is speaks of power to me. And this is power, I want to be in the hands of one that has a power to bring life to death. I don't want things to end at death. I want life to come after it. And then even the last one, or who is it that rules and regulates all affairs? This is something, as you're reading through this, this is really just like a key point that really is so comprehensive, like regulates all affairs. And the verse already started with talking about such vast things like the earth and the sky, and then it came to me personally with my hearing and my sight. So like we're already zoomed in, and then now it's talking about regulating all affairs. So it's easy for me to comprehend how the being that's reciting this, or like the God that's speaking this verse to me, it's saying, like, I could be like, yes, one who is so comprehensive and capable of controlling the earth and the skies, and also my hearing and sight, is the one that is regulating all affairs. And I find comfort in that as well, because now I know there's order in things. And then he says, they will say God. And it's kind of interesting because it says, they will say God, say, will you not then show piety to him? So it seems like we can come to this conclusion, like it's the logical conclusion that you say God, like, there was a creator, he created this. And then it says, will you not then show piety to him? So like, will you not then like stay on this road? Will you not then, live in this way, correctly? And it's ending saying, this is God, your sustainer, the truth. And the names that are chosen here are also beautiful. So like, this is God. This is like, Nursi explains this all. Like, I'm just like, my reaction is like, this is God. Like, it's like some power. This is like it's like a finality to it. And then sustainer is, that's like the whole universe has been made to sustain me, from the earth and the sky all the way to my hearing and my sight. This is all created to sustain me. So it all speaks to this attribute of sustainership. And then truth. Truth just summarizes also, I think, this verse very well. Like, this, it makes it even like more eloquent, in the sense that this is all belongs to one. All these other distractions and all these other different noises I can get throughout during my day-to-day life, or things that I could like trick me, let's say, they're not the truth. And then the truth is very clear, because who can regulate all this? There can only be one who can regulate all these affairs. And that's all I really had to say. But I just wanted to say, like, this verse very clearly was beautiful to me, and I just really appreciated it. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdurrahman, for that very beautiful comment. Yeah, I before I pass it over to Brother Yusuf, I think there is such a knowing progression of thought and question in the verse, as you said, starting from the sky and the earth, as in like everything that exists. The sky and the earth, the heavens and the earth, representing everything that exists. And then hearing and sight being something so specific to me as a human being, as a living being, right? And then life and death being, the greatest question that humans really have, that they struggle with. So here, I guess, like, all these rhetorical questions really make me face myself, in that I have to ask, who am I? And I see that I'm completely needy. I need sustenance from the sky and the earth. I need hearing and sight. I need life, and I need life after death as well. And I need meaning in all my affairs. It goes through this process where I conclude I am absolutely needy and dependent, absolutely created. And he is God. He is the absolute sustainer, the absolute source. the truth that I seek, right? In my affairs, the truth that I seek in my questions. So there's also this, this complete awareness that the verses have over my own human psychology and my own reality and what I am really in search of and in need of. But thank you, Brother Yusuf. Please go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I'm trying to remember. So there, after all those rhetorical questions, the inevitable answer that they will give is God. Then there's a response, say, will you not then show piety to him, or will you not become conscious of him? So the verse was saying, أَفَلَا تَتَّقُونَ, so are you not going to have taqwa? So become conscious of your creator. But then the beginning of the next verse is saying, this is God, your sustainer, the truth. So as if also correcting or, in a sense, correcting the inevitable answer that they give. It's not simply God. It is saying that this is God, as if it is so self-evident right in front of your eyes. What you see here is inevitably pointing to God, your sustainer, the truth. So not only, maybe it might also be implying that it might also be answering the question, will you not then show piety to him? Because in the next part of this verse, it's also talking about, as if implying people, why do people turn their back to truth after they see the truth? Is there any falsehood after truth? Why is it there? So this might also be indicating that me simply saying God is, or leaving it there, might be a reason that I am turning my back quickly from truth. As you see all those different verses or different creation, as 4 of them was given in here as example, I need to also see the differences in them. Simply saying that God created everything, or all of them means God, such an umbrella explanation. Behind all such a generalized explanation, things are either getting hidden or becoming forgotten very easily. So here the creator is underlining, saying that it is as if clear to be pointing with the finger. This is God, your sustainer, the truth. This is what it means. It's not simply and only saying God. It is God, your sustainer. So you are being sustained, you remember? And also the truth. You see that he is the one that, actually the other question that I was going to ask was, why is the truth? How can we extract the truth from, brings out the living from the dead and the dead from the living? How can I conclude with the truth, the name, the truth, al-haq, from this? But as I was rereading the third paragraph down, the author is talking about al-haq as he is the right. He does right. He doesn't wrong. So bringing out the living from the dead and the dead from the living. And again, I should leave it as an open question, how to derive the truth from that, leaving it there, reading those separate meanings from the creation, not only leaving it by saying that it is God, but giving all those in-depth meaning. This is God, your sustainer, the truth, is what can provide me or help me having piety or taqwa to the creator.
Thank you, Brother Yusuf, for that very helpful comment, and for sharing your thoughts. Would anyone else like to share something, make a comment here, maybe in response? H. Beza, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. This isn't necessarily a response to Brother Yusuf's comment, but just something that's been brewing in my mind, which, you know, seeing or witnessing the eloquence of the Quran in the way that it's being presented to us. Of course, first and foremost, you know, the verses telling me not to take these things for granted because I have access to all of these things that are being called out in my day-to-day life, as do most people in some form. But also being able to witness the eloquence in terms of, you know, obviously teaching me how to read the universe or the book of the universe. But also, as was mentioned, the progression of thought, you know, taking me, as the author has explained, from God to sustainer to truth to God. And also the connection of these different aspects that are being highlighted as a part of my human experience, as well as Abdul Rahman highlighted earlier. For example, like the sky and the earth being, at least the aspects that I was thinking about, is something that's external to me. So something that's outside of my body, and then hearing and sight being part of my body, but also it can be externally witnessed as well as something else, but being part of my body, and then the living from the dead and the dead from the living could be also my, like, something that's not necessarily, although is also witnessed in the universe, but it can also look to my human desire for, you know, eternal life, for the necessity of resurrection. So kind of also highlighting these outer and inner aspects of my experiences as a human being. And so, you know, as I was having an internal dialogue with myself, I was thinking about how oftentimes, at least, I sometimes find myself overreading into perhaps a poem or a book, or maybe reading meaning into something perhaps the author hadn't intentionally or intended, perhaps. And this has happened where I've spoken with the author of some writing, perhaps, and, you know, I've said or derived some sort of meaning from it that was not originally intended there. So, I mean, of course, this is off the table in terms of, you know, by definition, when I am interacting with the speech of my creator, by definition, it must be all comprehensive of my human experiences, and it must be infinite in this sense. But also just the different aspects, both that the author highlighted, the way that these 4 parts kind of connect to one another, connect to the human experience, connect to the human experience via the physical universe, and kind of like different dimensions or inner outer aspects of it, necessarily point that, or must be all intentional, or it must necessarily be there, like a meaning there for me to read, just because of how beautifully it is portrayed, of how beautifully it is, the delicacies of the meaning are woven together. So, and how multi-dimensional these different readings kind of come together, both separately and also in the way that they interact with one another as well. So just I was just reflecting on that aspect, or that the eloquence of the Quran, both in these different aspects, but also in the way that these different aspects interact with one another as well.
Thank you very much, H. Beza, for that lovely comment. And, you know, it makes me think of how an anthropologist, let's say, perhaps, might say, well, the human creature is a meaning-making creature. You know, we are just, quote unquote, given this or have this mechanism to formulate meaning or search for meaning. But when ... there might not be no meaning within parentheses. But, you know, when I think about my existence being given and all my faculties being given and all my qualities being given, I don't think there's, at least when it comes to the scripture of the universe, the scripture of existence, I don't think there can be any meaning making that is over the top or extracting meaning from something where there isn't. Because I've been given this ability. I've been given the quality, the tendency to search for meaning. I didn't choose to, but it's been given to me. And I have the need to do it as well. I have the need for all things to be meaningful. You know? You know, not just the things that in daily life I might categorize, or sometimes, you know, we'll categorize certain events as coincidences because they're kind of strange. But then even the normal day, ordinary, seemingly ordinary events, like it rained yesterday, or I was stuck in traffic today. These too require me to engage in that process of meaning making. In fact, I would say that their very existence, the very fact that I experience them, is a direct invitation for me to not make the meaning, because the meaning is there for me, right? I can't make anything, but to try to understand and seek the qualities there that they point to. See how they lead my gaze to their source of existence. Just some thoughts, I guess. Brother Birkan, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. This is not necessarily a response to Hatice's comment, which was necessarily not a response to Yusuf's comment. I think it's really important what Hatice said, these how there's different things looking to each other. So when you study the universe, you see one quality, but this quality directly segs into directly goes to another, calls for another quality. You see the knowledge and power manifested, and it directly, it calls attention to control. So all these different aspects, especially when it comes to my needs, they each look to each other. They all look to each other. So this is the very important thing. The second thing, as you said, somebody may say, oh, human being is a meaning generator, or another may say, the universe or natural laws are self-organizing and all these things. But the verse, it's interesting. It says, they will say God. And who's them? I guess we can read it in one way, in which the verse talking about certain people who would acknowledge God, but at the same time wouldn't, to pay its due. Meaning, when it comes to their the daily living, the personal space, they wouldn't care about God. We can read the verse as such. But at the same time, I guess we can even read verse in more general way and take it as whatever people say, whether it's meaning generators, self-organizing, the natural laws, self-sustaining, material or whatever, they actually referring to God one way or another. They have to attribute some qualities that you all see in this universe. The verse is talking about these qualities, right? Names. They are attributing these names, this quality, godlike qualities, to things. No matter what they call it, when you study what they mean, you will see that they are worshipping a certain thing. They are assuming a godlike quality in this thing that they call. No matter what they call it, they actually say it is God. If it is a human being generating all these meanings, the human beings are gods. If it is natural laws are gods. So there is no escape from it. You have to attribute these godlike qualities that you observe, and they all observe, they all experience, to a God or to gods, multiple gods. Doesn't matter, but God has to be there. The name will change. What makes difference is the second part, which is acknowledging this fact and paying its due. According to verse, it says, will you not then show piety to him? If this is your God, verse says, if you call this as your God, then worship him. Worship it. Show your piety. That is God, your sustainer. But you can also take it as, you can take this as conclusion that the God you calling is actually your sustainer, and make a personal relationship. But at the same time, you can take it as a question. Is this the God? Is this your sustainer? These nonsensical natural laws, the mystical natural laws, or the atoms, or whatever. Is this your God? Is this the one that sustains you? Don't play with words. It's always God that you are calling for. And if this is your God, then you're going to worship him. Then you will assume that it is your sustainer. And then next thing, you will realize that you're living life as, it is your sustainer. You are afraid of X, Y, or Z, losing X, Y, or Z, because it's your God, it's your sustainer. And this is your truth now. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you very much, Brother Birkan. If there are no other comments, I think that's a beautiful note to end on. But if there are comments, of course, feel free to share them. Any last minute sentiments, objections, questions, hesitations that you might have. I'll give you guys a moment. Okay, then you'll hold your peace on